It's super important to know how to automate your spreadsheet, and that's because you don't want to have to keep doing the same thing over and over again just because data has refreshed. And you can sync data with different sources like Salesforce or a lot of other places. The goal for every spreadsheet builder should be that you create a spreadsheet that you can build, give to somebody, and then it will work perfectly regardless of what data is updated and thrown its way. So with these 5 formulas, you're able to really elevate your spreadsheets and automate pretty much everything. And these 5 formulas are ISBLANK, array formula, and the array formula that I'm talking about is the functionality that's exclusive to Google Sheets, so it doesn't work exactly the same way in Excel. XLOOKUP, import range, also exclusive to Google Sheets, and query, which is also exclusive to Google Sheets. So if you're looking for an Excel, this is not your tutorial. This is how to use Google Sheets and automate pretty much anything you want to. Let's dive in. So the use case here is that we have a company that uses multiple spreadsheets to track sales data, and we want to consolidate all this into a single list to be able to track performance. So again, the formulas that we're using are ISBLANK, and really it's an if ISBLANK formula. The if does play a factor, but the ISBLANK really sets it apart. Array formula, XLOOKUP, query, and import range. All right, so the first thing we need to do is get to know our data and know exactly what we're trying to build. So right here, we have a blank sheet, and this is where we're going to compile our information. We have a target, so we can see exactly what each associate's target is for Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. And on the roster, it shows every single associate and whether they are active or inactive. Then over here on a different sheet, we have the actual sales results for October 2024, November 2024, December 2024, and the Q4 total. So on our other spreadsheet, what we want to do is we want to compile the associate, the Q4 total. We want to divide that Q4 total by the target to see what percent of their target was attained. And we want to say whether or not that associate is still active. And the reason why that could matter is for commissions, different things like that. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and skip to A2. That way we can add a header later on. I'll put equals import range. And what import range will do is it will take whatever is live on the different spreadsheet, and it will import everything into the spreadsheet that you currently want to work with. But since it's a live sync, if the other spreadsheet is updated, your spreadsheet is going to be updated automatically as well. Now, import range is pretty simple. All we need to do is know the URL. So let's go ahead and copy the URL. Then we also need to know the name of the tab. So in this case, the name is called Sales Results, and what columns we want to include. So we want to include A to E. Now, if I go back here, inside quotes, I'm going to put that spreadsheet URL. So I'll paste that. Then I'll put a comma, and now we need the range string. And the range string is going to be the name of the tab with an exclamation point, followed by the columns that you want to include. So in this case, it was sales results, exclamation point, A:(E). In the quote, close parentheses, and press enter. Now you'll get a reference error at first, and that's because you need to authorize it to connect the different spreadsheets because once again, this is a live sync. So I'm going to allow access, and now we have every single associate listed on the other tab, on the tab that we need. Now you can see we have a bunch of zeros over here. I'm going to go ahead and delete those, just keep things clean. And since I deleted those, now they are deleted right here as well. If you wanted to clean this up a little bit better, you could use the if is blank. You're going to learn here in a second, but just for the sake of time, let's go ahead and continue. Now with the import range formula, it's going to bring in the exact columns in the exact rows that you tell it to. So I don't want to include the header, so I'm actually going to change A to A2 and press enter. And now it just includes the associates and it removes the header. Now I don't really care about October, November, and December breakdowns. All I care about is the totals for this use case. So this is where the query formula comes in. So I'm going to wrap the import range formula with query. The data is going to be the data that's coming in with this import range formula. And I want to only include columns A and columns E. Now, if you're using query in the same spreadsheet, you can simply put A, comma, E. But since we're going from an external spreadsheet, we need to use col1, comma, col5. And the reason why it's column 5 is because E is the 5th letter of the alphabet, aka it's the 5th row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to put select, capital C in col1, comma, col5. Now I'm going to add a where clause. And that's because I don't want to return anything that's blank just for the sake of how much space we're using in our spreadsheet. So I'm going to say where col1 is not null. And is not null is just a fancy way of saying is not blank. I'll end the quote, close parentheses, and press enter. So now I have just column 1 and column 5 directly from this spreadsheet. And like I said, this is live. So if this changes to 7,000, for example, this is now 19,752. If I go back over here, 19,752. So this is perfect when it comes to automating your spreadsheets and making them dynamic for future data. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and put associate, and I'm gonna put Q4 total. Now, the next thing I wanna do is find the target for each associate and find what percent they attain. So I'm gonna put percent target attainment. And after that, we're gonna wanna find the status, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Now, I'm going to go ahead and convert this to a table just to make it a little bit nicer. So I'm going to select Format, Convert to Table, and I'll rename this as Performance. Perfect. All right, so for the Q4 total, this is going to be a currency. So let's go ahead and make this a currency. Percent target attainment, this is going to be a percent. And the status is going to be a text field. And now we're good. So that is the import range and the query formulas combined into one to be able to pull live data from another spreadsheet into the spreadsheet you're currently working with and extract only specific items from that spreadsheet. Now, the next thing we're going to do is an XLOOKUP formula, which you probably are familiar with if you're watching this video, but we're also going to couple that with an array formula. And the array formula works a little bit differently in Google Sheets than it does in Excel. In Excel, it simply applies one formula to an entire array and returns one answer. That's also true in Google Sheets. It can work that way, but it also works where it applies the same formula over and over and over again until it reaches the bottom of the range. This saves a lot of time. Instead of having to drag down formulas or copy and paste, you can set it up once and then it will apply the same formula all the way through the end of the column. So let me give you an example. So what we're going to do here, just on a basic sense, is we're going to take the total and we are going to do an XLOOKUP formula. We'll click on John Smith, and then we're going to use this target. Now the target is a table, so instead of having to go through and look at associates and do Q4, all that fun stuff, we can actually use named ranges within that table. So I'm going to simply type associate, and you can see here we have a roster associate and we have targets associate. The roster associate obviously goes with the roster, target with target. So I want to look up the target associate. I want to return Q4, so I'm going to type in Q, and this will be targets Q4. And then this is super, super important when it comes to automation. I'm going to put a comma. And the comma is because missing values. So normally, if you don't find a result, it's going to give you a reference error saying that nothing was found. But if you put a comma, if nothing is found, then it's simply going to be blank. So that way you can apply it to way past where your data set is, and not have to worry about a bunch of different error messages. It'll work a lot better and you'll be able to anticipate future data. So I'm simply going to close the parentheses here and press enter. And now we have 62% of our target. Now, a lot of people, they would simply drag this formula down and get all the different details for each individual. But once again, we're trying to make things automatic. We're trying to make things dynamic, so this doesn't work. So instead, we're going to change this into an array formula. So you can either type it out or you can use hotkeys. The hotkeys for a Mac is Command-Shift-Return, and the hotkeys for a PC is Control-Shift-Enter. So you'll click right between the equals and the start of the formula and put those hotkeys, and you can see now everything is wrapped. But if you press enter right here, nothing changes, and that's because we don't have an array to look at. So now we're simply going to turn this into an array. So now array formula B2:B, and then A2:A, and press enter. And now we have every single target attainment for all of it. Now if we scroll down, we can see all the way down to the end of the column, we have a bunch of divide by zero errors. And that's because there is no result to divide by for the XLOOKUP. So even though we have this missing values, it doesn't exactly work the same way in this case. So to fix this, we're going to incorporate that if is blank formula. All we need to do is go into the formula itself. So right before B2:B, we're going to type if, open parentheses, is blank, open parentheses, B2:B, close parentheses, comma, comma. Now the reason why we're doing B2:B instead of A2:A. Just in case there is no result found for the sales total, we want that to be blank instead of if the associate is blank. This doesn't really matter depending on how you build your spreadsheet, but that's just what I'm doing. So we have is blank, so this is going to look up the cell in column B and say whether it's blank or not. If it is blank, then we're going to return a blank. That's what this is right here. And if it's not blank, we're going to continue with that formula with that B2:B, and that's it. So now I can press enter. And if we scroll down, we're able to see that there is no divide by zero errors anymore. Now, like I said, this is all automated. So if we added more people, it will automatically flow through with this information. So let's say, for example, I'm just going to copy people that already exist since they're already on our roster and everything, and put them in the bottom. Now, instead of stopping with Ella Phillips, once that other spreadsheet is updated, it automatically flows through with the new associates, their new totals, and it automatically calculates their attainment. Now for the status, we pretty much did this already with this target attainment. Let's go ahead and do another XLOOKUP. So I'm going to XLOOKUP the associate, comma, and then once again, I'm going to use the name range instead of going to the roster itself. So I'm going to put in associate. This time we're going to do the roster associate. And then I'm going to put the status, and the roster status is what we want. Put a comma, that way it's blank if it's not found, and press enter. So we can see this one is active. Now, instead of dragging down like you're probably used to doing, we're simply going to turn this into an array formula, and then change the array for A2 to A2:A. Now we have all the different actives and inactives, and since it's not a calculation where the blank is on the bottom, we don't need to do any of the if is blank. Instead, it works just as expected where we don't have any information unless this is filled out. So if this is filled out, so David Lee, for example, it will automatically populate. And then if you want to add different conditional formatting to make active and inactive different colors, different things like that, you're more than welcome to customize it from there. So that's how to use those 5 main formulas that I use to automate pretty much all of my spreadsheets. And then once the data is updated, everything flows through automatically as a result. So once again, import range brings live data from one spreadsheet into the spreadsheet you're working on. Query combined with import range helps you only bring in the information that you care about. XLOOKUP allows you to look up information on different tabs and bring it directly into your cell that you're working on. Array formula allows you to use one single formula but apply it to an entire column of rows. And then the if is blank combination is going to allow you to make it where it's going to be blank unless a certain trigger exists. So that way you can make sure that you're anticipating future data, but it's not showing a bunch of errors in the meantime. I have videos on my page that shows you more in depth how to use each one of these formulas. The main two I want to highlight, because a lot of people don't know how to use these formulas, is query and import range. And you can find both of these videos on my page super easily. And best of all, the query formula comes with practice spreadsheets, so you can practice as you go along. And that's it. You're really on your way to automating every single one of your spreadsheets. Depending on what your position is, a lot of times you can just build it, give it to whoever needs to know this information, and then not have to worry about it again. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and click that bell button if you haven't already for more things Google Sheets related and different tips and tutorials.